Greetings. It's been a couple of weeks since I made a video for these planters, and now it's time for an update. As I said in the last video, this is not the first time I've tried this, but I wanted to try again with something a lot simpler and realize this really is a kid-friendly project. No tools, just a water bottle, a little toilet paper, some water, and of course, the seeds. Now to the experimental portion with these bottle planters. After 2 weeks, I think I can pretty conclusively say that capping a bottle doesn't work as well as not capping it. I believe the problem is that the plants can't breathe. This is the capped bottle. This is the one that wasn't capped. Yes, plants breathe, although they do it in the opposite way that we humans do. They inhale carbon dioxide and exhale oxygen. They also soak in water through the roots and release it through the leaves. That second part with the water was what I was originally thinking about, but I forgot that plants need air. Capping the bottle means that they only have the air supply that was in the bottle when it was capped. This is a simplified explanation, and in plant biology they use other terms, but the basic idea is the same. If the bottle is capped, the plant may have enough water, but without air they suffocate. Not all plants necessarily work the same though. I know of at least one example of a large bottle planter that has plants that have survived for decades while the bottle was corked. I saw the video here on YouTube about that planter, and if you want to check that out, click this link and it will open a new window with that video. Now, on to the transplant. Once your plant has grown tall enough to escape the top of the bottle and the stem looks strong, it's time to consider transplanting it. This one I attempted to start from seed 2 weeks ago, and the seed rotted at the bottom after a week. So at that point I just added another seed. That seed was slow to germinate. Bean seeds usually germinate within a day or two. Once it started to germinate though, it took only a few days to get this tall. Seriously, 3 days and it's this tall. I know from past experience that the stem should be pretty strong, and I think it's time to transplant this one into a pot that's a little bigger than the bottle. If I need to, I'll transplant again into a bigger planter, but this should do for now. Now the trick here is pretty simple. We're going to fill the bottle with more water and wait a couple of hours. Let's try that. Now the hard part here with filling the bottle is it's a very narrow neck. But I'm going to take this and I'm going to try and pour water from another similar bottle. And the idea here is that the water dropping in will help to agitate the toilet paper that's down there. Now, okay, that's not going to be so clear. Let me get it in frame. Now, you can see it's filled with water at this point, and I'm just going to kind of swirl it around a bit, and that should help to loosen up the toilet paper. The reason why I let it sit for a while is because the paper will just kind of, having that much water around it, it will break down, and as it breaks down, it'll be easier to extract this plant from the bottle. Now that we've waited a couple of hours, we can see how loose this is. So let me pick it up, and I'm going to try and gently pull up on it, and hopefully what will happen, and I'm also just going to kind of move it up and down a little bit, and hopefully what we'll get is roots coming up without all the toilet paper. It's almost like magic. Now let me put it down for a second and just sort of explain. If that hadn't worked, then the solution would be to basically do the same thing again. You want to pour the water out, and when you pour the water out, some of the toilet paper is going to come with it. That makes it less toilet paper in there, and then you can fill it up with water again, and when you fill it up with water again, You let that sit for a little while. Maybe you don't have to wait 2 hours, but the idea is just to let the toilet paper break down and kind of work its way off the roots, because you really don't want to break the roots when you're pulling it out. Now, to be completely honest with you, my little time jump there of 2 hours wasn't actually 2 hours. It was almost instantaneous, because I was showing this to somebody earlier and I tugged on the stem, and I got very, very lucky that the roots came up nice and clean, because there was just enough water in the bottom of the bottle to start with. Keep in mind that when you're growing, you don't necessarily want to have too much water, because the water works its way up the stem. It basically, the plant suffers. It's the same thing as overwatering in a pot. So you want to keep a minimum amount of water in there, enough for it to survive, but not too much. So in this case, I'm pretty lucky. I'm able to pull this out. I'm just trying to give you enough information so that if it doesn't come up clean the first time, you can do it. You can repeat the process. Even if you had to repeat it 10 times, it's worth the effort to try and get the roots out clean. If you pull too hard and the roots are deeply entrenched into that little bit of toilet paper, you could actually snap the roots off, and then the plant's just going to die. So that's what I'm trying to do. Now I'm going to go get the pot, and we're going to go ahead and do the transplant. Actually, before I move everything out of the way, just wanted to show you, I actually had sitting here another bottle, and that one was an additional experiment I did a couple of days later, where I put in some tomato seeds that I saved from a tomato, and you can see they're doing pretty well. I'm hoping that's coming through. And so these, I'm going to wait for them to grow tall enough to escape the bottle, and then I'll work on pulling them out and transplanting them. Oops, almost forgot one more important thing. Now, while this plant's still sitting here in the bottle, I'm leaving it in there because I don't want the roots to dry out. What I would recommend is, once you manage to extract it, you want to have like a glass of water or some larger container ready that's filled with just water, no toilet paper, and you can drop the plant in there at the roots. If it's only for a few minutes, it's not going to hurt the plant, generally speaking. Maybe some plants are more sensitive, but the idea is to keep the roots wet while you're getting ready to transplant. So I'm leaving this in here now because I know that it's a good source of water to keep the roots wet. Okay, so now we have a pot, and I've got the soil ready to go. And this is not a very large pot, but this is still pretty much a seedling. I'm not too worried about how big it is. Ultimately, if it gets big enough, I'll transplant it into another pot. So what you want to do actually is, you don't want to fill the pot with soil. You want to just get it started. So I'm going to drop some soil in here. Oops, that's actually more than I thought it would be. So let me maybe dig a hole in the center there for the roots. Now the other thing you can do, or the other thing you want to consider when you're doing this, is you want to take your plant, you want to look at those roots again. So here's the plant, and here we are with the roots. And I'm going to pull it out so you can see about how deep the roots are. You really want to make enough room that the roots can keep their same sort of overall height. So, and now I'm not going to be able to put it back in the bottle too easily, but that's what I wanted to consider. And actually, as it turns out, the amount of soil that I put in there is probably appropriate. So I'm going to take the plant, I'm going to hold it up and over that so it's just lightly resting, and I'm going to get some more soil, and this is kind of hard to do with me behind the camera. And I'm going to drop the soil in. You want to be careful how you do it. You want to be able to support the plant. Now, if I were to just let go right now, it would probably just flop over, and I don't want that. So I'm trying to do this and be somewhat coordinated. And you're probably going to make a mess of whatever table you're using to put the soil on. Now I'm going to pack it down a little bit just to make sure the soil is firm. And at this point, it's flopping over a bit, but I'm going to add a little bit more soil, and I know that the roots are now at a decent depth, and they still have some room to go down. Now, in general, when you're transplanting a plant, you don't want to bury the stem. In this case, I'm not too worried about it. It's a bean plant. They tend to be pretty hardy. Tomatoes, interestingly enough, you can bury the stem, and what happens when you bury the stem is, if you look at a tomato plant real carefully, you look at that stem, you'll see tiny little hairs, and those tiny little hairs are actually kind of mini roots. And if you bury the stem too much, what will happen is it doesn't hurt the plant because it'll actually put out roots right where those hairs are. Bean plant may not be exactly the same, but there we go. We've got it transplanted. It's not standing up perfectly straight. I'm not too worried about that. Now I can put some water in there and water it in. You want to make sure the first couple of days, few days, initially, that you see how quickly that water went in there. I'm actually going to drop a little bit more soil, because even though I packed it in, the soil settled. But that's that. And I'm out of regular water. Here's the water that had the toilet paper in it. I think that's fine as long as I don't dump the toilet paper in. Even then, it probably wouldn't hurt too much. But I want to make sure it gets a good drink of water to start. And for the next few days, I'll make sure it gets a good drink of water. Then after that, you just go back to a regular watering schedule. So there you have it, my friends. The bottle planter, the simple, safe bottle planter was a success. At least the one that was not capped. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Feel free to comment. This is the Budget Gardener signing off, saying may your thumb be green.